So today in this video we are going to discuss about the rectus abdominis and pyramidalis. Actually these are the both vertical muscles of our abdomen, anterior abdomen. So let us start with rectus abdominis. So you can see it's a vertical muscle. So this arises mainly by two tendinous heads, that is a lateral head from the lateral part of pubic crest and a medial head which is coming from anterior pubic ligament, and these fibers run vertically upwards. So actually it is having two heads of origin. So one side will be the medial side and one side will be the lateral side. So that is the medial side one is the medial head which is coming from anterior pubic ligament. Okay, and lateral one is coming from lateral part of pubic crest. Okay, so the two heads. And now coming to the insertion on the front of wall of thorax along the horizontal line, passing laterally from scaphoid process and cutting in that order the 7th, 6th and 5th costal cartilage. So you can see its insertion, it is inserting into the scaphoid process and also into the 7th, 6th and 5th costal cartilages here. So that is its insertion. So now supply, it is supplied by lower 6 or 7 thoracic nerves. So lower 6 or 7 means as we have seen before, the lower 6 thoracic nerves are T7 to T12, right? So T7 to T12, or like lower 7 thoracic nerves means either from T8 to T12. So these are the nerves supplied for the rectus abdominis muscle. Now coming to the other features, like this muscle is enclosed in a sheet and it is formed mainly by aponeurosis of three flat muscles of abdominal wall. So what is that sheet? Everything that is rectus sheet, let us see it later. Okay, and coming to tendinous intersections, these are three transverse fibrous bands. You can see here clearly 1, 2, 3. These are called as tendinous intersections. So these transverse bands are dividing the muscle into smaller parts, and one lies opposite the umbilicus, you can see here, right, and the second one is opposite the free end of scaphoid process, and the third one is between these two. So one or two incomplete intersections may be present below the umbilicus, and the intersections are actually zigzag in nature and transverse only the anterior half of the muscle, and are adherent to anterior wall of rectus sheet. So embryologically they may represent the segmental origin of this muscle, but functionally they make the muscle more powerful by increasing the number of muscle fibers. Actually what they mean to say is embryologically this muscle is like segmental in origin, whereas functionally if you see this muscle have more number of muscle fibers so that it has more power. Okay, so this is umbilicus. So side of it you can see these are tendinous intersections, and this is scaphoid process, and these are the costal cartilages. To this costal cartilages, these are ribs actually. So to respect to costal cartilages and scaphoid process, it has its insertion, and remember it has two heads of origin. So now coming to the actions of main muscle of anterior abdominal wall. So actually, and not only this muscle, all the anterior abdominal wall muscles, what is their main action? They support the abdominal viscera. The abdominal muscle provide a firm elastic support for abdominal viscera against gravity, and this is chiefly due to tone of oblique muscles, especially internal oblique. So internal oblique is mainly useful for maintaining the tone of abdominal muscles. Okay, next coming to expulsive acts. The oblique muscles assisted by transverses can compress the abdominal viscera and help in expulsive acts like micturition, defecation. So for all this process like micturition, defecation, parturition, vomiting, for all this you need an expulsive act. So that is provided by oblique muscles like transversus muscle. Okay, so the most important actions of the abdominal muscle. So these are the most important action of abdomen, like micturition, defecation, parturition, vomiting, etc. Now coming to the forceful expiratory acts. The external oblique, according to name you can say external oblique expiratory. So this is mainly useful for depressing and compressing lower part of thorax, producing forceful expiration like in coughing, sneezing, blowing, shouting, etc. So this is also an important action of abdominal muscle. So finally you have the movements of the trunk. So actually here in this diagram we are showing rectus abdominis only. I am talking generally about like all abdominal muscles, right? So movement of the trunk, like flexion of the trunk or lumbar spine, is brought mainly by rectus abdominis. So here you got this muscle. The rectus abdominis is useful to movement of the trunk, like flexion of the trunk or lumbar spine, and lateral flexion of the trunk is done by side contraction of oblique muscles, and the rotation of the trunk is produced by combined action of external oblique and internal oblique. So in the next diagram, we'll discuss about the inguinal ligament. So inguinal ligament is mainly formed by lower border of external oblique. So this inguinal ligament, you can see here clearly, this is called as inguinal ligament. It is just formed by the lower border of external oblique aponeurosis, okay, which is thick and folded backwards on itself, and it extends from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic, okay, to the pubic tubercle, and lies beneath the fold of groin. So actually here lies the groin fold, and below the groin fold you will have the inguinal ligament, okay. And the lateral half is rounded and oblique. So we can see here, this is a pubic tubercle, this is a pubic crest, so it is a medial side. So if you talk about the lateral side, it is attached to anterior superior iliac spine, okay, and its medial half is grooved upwards and more horizontal, yes, right. So now coming to the attachments, like what all the structures are attached to our inguinal ligament. So the fascia lata is attached to lower border, okay. So fascia lata will attach to the lower border of inguinal ligament, and traction of this fascia makes the ligament convex downwards, and the upper surface of the ligament gives origin to internal oblique from its lateral two-thirds. So internal oblique muscle will attach on its lateral two-thirds. This is medial side, this is lateral side. So here in the lateral side there is attachment of internal oblique, and also to transverse abdominis from lateral one-third, and also to cremaster muscle from its middle part. So middle part will give insertion to the cremaster muscle. So what are the different relations of inguinal ligament? The upper grooved surface of medial half of inguinal ligament forms the floor of inguinal canal. So this upper part will form the floor for the inguinal canal. Of course, we will discuss inguinal canal in next video. And it lodges the spermatic cord around ligament of uterus. In male, spermatic cord; in female, round ligament of uterus. So what is the extensions? So this diagram is now useful for us because of extensions. So first you have the pectineal part of inguinal ligament, okay. So you can see here, this is the pectinate ligament, right. So this is nothing but the pectineal part of the inguinal ligament. So this or you can also have a lacunar ligament, which is triangular, right, and anteriorly it is attached to medial end of inguinal ligament, yes, you can see here, and posteriorly it is attached to pecten pubis. So posteriorly it is attached to pecten pubis here, right. And next it is horizontal in position and supports the spermatic cord, and the apex is attached to pubic tubercle. The apex, you can see, it is attached to the pubic tubercle, and the base is directed laterally. It forms this is the base, it is directed laterally, right. And next it forms a medial boundary of femoral ring. So it is forming a medial boundary of femoral ring, and next it is reinforced by pectineal fascia and by fibers from linea alba. So you can see linea alba. So these fibers are like reinforcing our lacunar ligament or pectinate ligament. So till now we have discussed about the lacunar ligament. It has apex attached to pubic tubercle. It has base which is attached to the this base is towards the lateral side, right, and it is getting reinforced by the linea alba fibers. Done. So we are done with the lacunar ligament, and in the femoral ring it forms a medial part, medial boundary, right. So now we'll discuss about pectinate ligament, or called as ligament of Cooper. It is an extension from posterior part of base of the lacunar ligament. It is attached to pecten pubis, may be regarded as thickening in upper part of pectineal fascia. Next, coming to the reflected part of inguinal ligament. So here you can clearly mention, this is the reflected part of inguinal ligament. Sorry, not this one, this one. So this is a reflected part of inguinal ligament. It consists of fibers which pass upwards medially from lateral cross of superficial inguinal ring, and it lies behind the superficial inguinal ring and in front of conjoint tendon. Its fibers interlace with those of opposite side of linea alba over here, right. Next, coming to conjoint tendon. So what is conjoint tendon? Let us see another diagram. So in this diagram only you can understand the conjoint tendon also. Actually conjoint tendon is formed by fusion of lowest aponeurotic fibers of internal oblique. So for internal oblique, its aponeurosis will also end somewhere over this in inguinal ligament side only, right? So those fibers and of internal oblique and also by transverse muscles is attached to the pubic crest. So you can see here this is the pubic crest clearly, right? So the pubic crest they will attach and and also they are attached to the medial part of pecten pubis, and medially it is continuous with anterior wall of rectal sheath, and laterally it is free, and sometimes it may be continuous with inconstant ligamentous band named interfoveolar ligament. So sometimes there will be laterally interfoveolar ligament, so that will be also sometimes continuous with interfoveolar ligament, and which connects the lower border of transverse abdominis to superior ramus of pubis. So conjoint tendon strengthens the abdominal wall at the site where it is weakened by superficial inguinal ring. So you can see this is a superficial inguinal ring. Actually here the area is somewhat weakened, but it is strong, it is maintained strong because of the conjoint tendon which is present on pubic crest and also on pecten pubis, which mainly helps us to put it strong. So this is where the external oblique especially internal oblique, transverse abdominis muscles or tendons both will join here, and this is also called as plaques inguinalis. Now let us discuss about the cremaster muscle. So for that you can see this diagram. So let us understand about the cremaster muscle, and also here only we have our pyramidalis muscle, which is one more vertical muscle of the anterior abdominal wall. So first cremaster muscle. Cremaster muscle mainly consists of muscle fasciculi which are embedded in a cremasteric fascia. So in the cremasteric fascia there is a cremasteric muscle. So the fasciculi form the loops that are attached laterally to inguinal ligament. So actually they form some loops, and you can see that loop is going and attaching to the inguinal ligament. Here this is the inguinal ligament. And here some fibers may be continuous with internal oblique or transverse muscles. So the medial end of loops are attached to pubic tubercle here, and also to the loops are attached to pubic crest or conjoint tendon also over here. So they may also attach to you can see here only will be the pubic tubercle, and here somewhere over here will be pubic crest. So this loop of cremaster muscle is attached to pubic tubercle, pubic crest, and also to the inguinal ligament, and also sometimes to conjoint tendon, because conjoint tendon also will be here. In turn, the conjoint tendon contains the aponeurosis of internal oblique muscle and also transverse abdominis muscle, right? So this muscle is fully developed only in male, and in female it is represented by few fibers. So cremaster muscle is present more in male because more fibers are present in male in this muscle, but in the female there are less fibers, so it's not so developed in female. And along the intervening connective tissue, the muscle loops to form a sac-like cremasteric fascia around spermatic cord and testes, and it lies deep to the external spermatic fascia. So actually it is present in the deep to external spermatic fascia, and this cremasteric fascia is around the spermatic cord and testis in the case of male. So what is the nerve supply for this muscle? The nerve which is supplying it is a genital branch of genitofemoral nerve. So genitofemoral nerve, we know it's coming from a twig of lumbar plexus of L1 and L2. So genitofemoral nerve supplies this cremaster muscle. So what is the action of this muscle? It helps to suspend the testis and can elevate it. So this muscle also tend to close the superficial inguinal ring when intra-abdominal pressure is raised. So that superficial inguinal ring also will be present somewhere over here. So whenever it is close to that ring, especially in the case of intra-abdominal pressure, whenever it is very high, then this cremaster muscle will go near to the superficial inguinal ring, which will be present over here. So if you see the before diagram, you'll understand this is a superficial inguinal ring, right? So near to it. So in male, just this part below the pubic crest, like this, the cremaster muscle is forming. So it may also go to that ring. So coming to the cremasteric reflex, what is it? The cremasteric reflex is upon stroking the skin of upper part of medial side of thigh. If you stroke it, means if you touch it, especially upper part of medial side of thigh, there is a reflex contraction of cremaster muscle as evidenced by elevation and retraction of testes. So reflex is more brisk in children, and in upper motor neuron lesions above segment L1 the reflex is lost. Okay. So the reflex will be lost when there is any lesion above segment L1, because L1 is the one which is genitofemoral nerve which supplies it, right? So next let us discuss about a final muscle pyramidalis, which is actually the vertical muscle of abdomen. If you remember, in anterior abdominal wall you have external oblique, internal oblique, and external and internal oblique transverse abdominis as horizontal muscles. This is the vertical, this and rectus abdominis are vertical muscles, right? So let us discuss about pyramidalis. It is small triangular muscle. As you can see, it is rudimentary in human beings. It arises from anterior surface of body of pubis, and these fibers pass upwards medially and get inserted into the linea alba. So you can see they are inserted into a linea alba. They are arising from anterior surface of body of pubis, and they are like inserted medially to the linea alba, and this muscle is supplied by subcostal nerve. You know, subcostal nerve, the root value is T12, right? So it is said to be a tensor of linea alba, but need for such action is not clear. So it's like a vestigial muscle. It may be present in some. If it is not present also, it is not going to cause that much difference in a human beings. So this is all about the anterior abdominal muscles. Next we'll start with deep nerves and deep arteries of anterior abdominal wall.